collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video, and welcome to episode 271 of Ask Bossk Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday, where I take your questions from the comments section and do my best to answer them. So if you do have a question for next week's episode and you would like to be featured in the video, be sure to leave that question in the comments section of this video, and as I said, hopefully your question will be picked next week. If you do happen to enjoy the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you are new. But before we get on to this week's questions, I just wanted to make you aware very quickly that I will be doing another Whatnot livestream auction this Thursday, the 31st of July at 8 PM British Summer Time, which is 3 PM Eastern Standard Time. And in that stream, I will be doing another buyer's giveaway as well as some other small giveaways throughout. And the buyer's giveaway for this week's stream is going to be Attack of the Clones related, as we are on the topic, and it is going to be this awesome TVC 1.0 ZAM vessel carded, mint on card VC30, pretty desirable these days. I thought that would be a pretty good buyer's prize. So all you need to do is, if you're not already on Whatnot, sign up using the link in the description below. You will automatically be credited with £10 if you're in the UK or $15 if you are in the US to use on your first purchase. Unfortunately, you are only able to use your credits for auctions and listings that are in your own country. So if you're in the US, unfortunately, you won't be able to use your credit against any of my items in the auction, but I'm sure there might be a pretty good deal. The previous auction that we did, there were some buyers from the US and they seem to be pretty happy. But if you're in the UK, you will be able to use that £10 credit against items on my stream and automatically be then in with a chance of the buyer's giveaway. Also, I will be doing the draw for the winner of the layer. So if you do sign up for Whatnot using my link, then you will be in with a chance of winning this. This will be drawn in a couple of days, basically right at the end of the month, which was what we planned, and I will announce that on my social media and also contact the winner directly through Whatnot. So links are in the description below, and hopefully we'll see as many of you as we can on Thursday 31st, and hopefully I'll have some things that you will be interested in buying. All right then, so on to the first question, and it's a question that's been asked by two separate people, and the first one is Dean Lee. He says, "Hi Boss, question for next week. With the news of the HasLab Gunship being announced, what do you want to go with it during the Return to Geonosis campaign, and also how many are you backing?" And Farrell Kappa says, "Hi Tim, thank you for all the great content recently. My question for next week is, due to the HasLab reveal and focus of the prequel era for 2026, what is at the top of your wish list for figures, vehicles and playsets? Cheers, dude." So in terms of the HasLab itself, we'll talk about that a bit later on, but I've actually gone with two, which is kind of what I usually do. Like, I want to keep a set carded, you know, I want to review the figures as well, and also I want them loose for my collection. So unfortunately, I do have to kind of buy two of them, which isn't ideal with the price, but as I said, we'll talk about that later. But in terms of what I want Hasbro to release as part of the Battle of Geonosis theme, which is what they announced it would be, I think it's safe to say that there is quite a lot that we need, and some of it unfortunately is updates to figures that we already have, which I know some people don't like. They kind of just want new stuff, which I can totally get on board with. I feel that we need, you know, some of the separatist leaders, for example, that we don't really have in, you know, really good high quality. But then some of the main heroes as well. We've got Padme over there, Mace Windu. I think both of those figures need updating, especially if we're getting like new Jedi bodies. Mace Windu has to be included in that. And I'd even go as far as saying the Anakin that we got, like, what, 2 years ago now from Attack of the Clones. We've got the Dooku. I feel that the Anakin that we've got probably needs barbell hips so that he can jump on the back of this beast here, for example. I mean, I could keep going with figures, couldn't I? I think we need a new battle droid. We could do with a new super battle droid. We could do with new destroyers. We could do with a new Geonosis warriors. We could do with a new Poggle the Lesser, because I think the previous version that we got was in the Saga collection, and that needs, you know, a really good update. But then we move on to things like creatures, and I've got a couple of the creatures here. I do have the other one as well, but it's just too big to put on the table with everything else. And you know, there's an argument to say that we probably need those updated if you're really going to go for it, but I doubt Hasbro will do all three of those all new, for example. But maybe we go with like a creature that we've never had before, possibly the creature that's pulling along the chariot that Anakin and Padme get on board. So there's so many things. Obviously we need the HasLab to sort of back, so we have that centerpiece to go around it. If you're talking about a playset, you could talk about the arena itself. I'm thinking that might be a little bit on the large size for them to do as a playset. So maybe they're thinking of something a little bit smaller, maybe just a balcony area or something. You know, I really don't know. I'm throwing ideas out there at the moment, but I can't really see them sort of putting out a whole arena like they did previously, whenever that was. That's years ago now. So I can't really see them doing that, but we'll have to wait and see, man. But there's just a few things that I've listed there. There's so many things that we need. Young Boba Fett. So many things, man. Mando Mitchie says, hey BB, if Hasbro asked you to pick the theme, Tatooine was 2025 for 2026, what eras would be your top 3 picks? Now, obviously we now know what that era is going to be, and in fact it's not really an era. It kind of is. It's the prequel era, which we all kind of expected, but it's actually specifically the Battle of Geonosis. Now, for me, that wouldn't have been my number one choice. I feel, because of the previous question, there is a lot for them to do in terms of, like, you know, to really fill it out and to make it perfect. You'd want all of the creatures, all of the figures. There is a lot of characters in that scene. But me personally, I would probably have gone with Order 66, if I'm honest, because I don't know, there's just more in that I would like, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, I would love them to do a new Emperor Palpatine. In fact, there's 2 different looks for him that I would like for them to do, and the Black Series now has both, because I think they had the Palpatine arrest scene announced at SDCC. I want all of the Phase 2 clone commanders, and there's loads of Jedis there as well, some of which were also in this scene. You know, like we need a Ki-Adi-Mundi, for example. So I would have probably gone with Order 66, but I'm not moaning in the slightest that they've gone with the Battle of Geonosis. I think there's a lot for them to get to here. I just think with the amount of characters that are in this, I think we are going to be left a little bit disappointed, because they're just not going to be able to do them all, essentially. In terms of other eras, really, apart from the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, I feel that they've covered a few of the others. I'm not one of these people that's really interested in, like, the expanded universe stuff from thousands of years ago. Obviously, I love Andor, and we're going to be getting some of that anyway. And that's kind of like OT related anyway, isn't it? But original trilogy and prequel trilogy are my 2 number 1 sort of wants in the vintage collection. Clemmer says, hi BB, I definitely love all your videos. Question for next week. With the Cantina, we will soon have a new Greedo. Do you think Hasbro could create other Rodians for the main TVC line, like Beedo, for example? Greedo's cousin, we can see him in episode 4 and 6. He has never been released in any 3.75 inch toy line. Or do you have any other Rodians in mind? Thanks in advance for your answer. Cheers. So yes, at San Diego Comic Con there was potentially a Cantina Aliens 4-pack teased by Emily, and there was like this image with the sort of shadows of the hands, and I feel one of those potentially could be Beedo. I do know that on the post somebody remarked, they said, you know, these are going to be re-releases, and Emily actually said none of them are re-releases, but that doesn't mean that they can't use some of the parts, which I'm sure they will do, for other characters. And as you say, Beedo, for example, is a great example of where they could do that, basically, just to save a bit to get, you know, potentially Ali or Shush out there, or Labria, you know, characters like that where they've got to put more into the tooling. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Yeah, but absolutely, I don't feel that they'll stop with that Greedo. It's a very, very cool figure, very, very cool sculpt, so I'm sure we'll see it again. Tom Bryson says, love your channel and your thoughts. Thanks for the recommendations on Whatnot. Going to check it out for sure. My question is, how long until we see a new Luke from the second Death Star? We have the fantastic Black Series version, and we also have Darth Vader Death Star 2 in TVC. We know they can do swappable flap up, flap down. That is functional. So when do we see this again? It's been over a decade since they focused on this specific look. I'm not counting the 2019 reissue. Thanks for all you do. And yeah, there is the reissue, and unfortunately, I know you said that you don't count the reissue, and you know, many people wouldn't, but unfortunately I think Hasbro do. So they've put that figure out fairly recently, and it's okay, isn't it? It's not brilliant by any stretch. It could really do with an update. I just don't think it's going to be on their radar to do anytime soon, purely because if you look at what the focus is next year, and there will be original trilogy figures dotted around, but you know, the focus next year is most definitely for the Geonosis, and then of course we do have the Mandalorian film coming out as well, which I'm sure we will get a couple of figures for. And then the year after that, you've got the 50th anniversary of A New Hope, so you can kind of see that they will, you know, kind of center around that, which may not include Return of the Jedi. So I feel that this one is one of those ones that we might be waiting for a while. Rom Space Knight says, question, could you see Hasbro doing a Rebel General 3-pack with new General Dodona, Raikin and Medine? Man, I mean, all three of those are definitely figures that I would love for them to do. I need all three of those in my collections, basically, especially Medine. However, could I see Hasbro doing it? Unfortunately not. I think, I just can't see them doing it, basically, but it would be cool. I'm not denying that. Classic Jaguar says, another great Ask Bossk video. Tim, question for next week. If you were given the rights to direct a 10-episode TV show, what would your Star Wars show be on? Mine would be a show based on Jango Fett's Bounty Hunter game. So having a little think about this, I would probably go with an Heir to the Empire show, because I really feel that the sequel trilogy would have been better off if it had concentrated on something like that, basically. And I would love to see that in live action. A Zilla says, hi boss, question for next week. HasLab Gunship in the first 24 hours has only got 20% backed. It is behind even the Rancor, which failed. Are you concerned? If we would ever fail a HasLab backing, I am afraid that they would take it away from TVC and get back to the Black Series. Hope we keep the momentum going. So yes, absolutely, I would be lying if I said that I wasn't a little bit concerned about it. Of course, I'm sure many people are that collect the vintage collection are a little bit concerned about how this particular HasLab project is going. At the time of recording this video, I've just had a look at the numbers and I don't think we've hit 2,000 yet, which is a little bit concerning. Hopefully people will back it, because I feel that if we want TVC to be successful and we want more out of TVC, then we need to be backing the HasLabs. Now, that's not me saying you have to back this or else the line's going to die, all that sort of doom mongering, if you like. But I think it is safe to say that it is going to be damaging for the line if a HasLab doesn't back. You can see what happened to the Black Series when the Rancor didn't back. It's super negative. And something like the Black Series can sort of survive something like that, can't it? It can come back. It's their bread and butter. They can pump money into it. Whereas the vintage collection, I don't feel is quite like that, basically. So it will be disappointing if this doesn't back. I do feel that there was a bit of a swell for prequel related items in the vintage collection, and Hasbro have now said, here is a prequel related item. It may not have been the prequel related item that everyone was wanting or expecting, but it's still there for people to back. And as I said, it will be super disappointing if this doesn't back. So we'll just have to monitor it over the coming weeks. Some of these things have a late push, but yeah, for sure, early numbers, we kind of need to monitor it. James Andrews says, why is it that people can't see that if we get the stretch goals on the HasLab, it automatically makes it a better value? The Jedi are a must. Imagine if we go over 14k, think they'd add an extra, and what would you like if they did? Well, James, buddy, I honestly don't think that we're going to go too far past 14k, as the previous question and answer sort of suggested. At this point, I'm hoping it backs, and then, we at least get some of the stretch goals. We've got to remember the Cantina didn't hit all of its stretch goals. Now, the popularity of these HasLabs might be on the downslide slightly, and I don't think that's like the hardcore collectors. I feel that's the people that maybe bought them as an investment, and they're looking at the ghost right now, where people are trying to offload their extra ghosts or the ghosts that they bought just for an investment, and they're realizing that they can't even sell it for retail value. And that is a big problem, because these HasLabs often get over the line and hit all of those stretch goals and go really far beyond, because of the people that buy the multiples and because of the people that buy them as an investment. And once you take that out of the equation, then you are going to be hitting a bit of a problem. But you are absolutely right, the value of the whole thing does go up if you hit the stretch goals. So the idea is to back it, because obviously you don't get charged until the end, so there's no reason not to back it now. And then that sort of pushes the popularity around it, makes people feel it's going to back, and then everybody wins at the end because we managed to unlock everything. If everybody had the same attitude of I'm just going to hold back just to see if it gets there, just to see if it unlocks all of the figures, and then I'm in, then it would never ever back at all if everyone had that attitude. Mega Man Media says, thanks for this channel, long time follower and fan from across the pond on Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Question for next week. With the Comic-Con 2025 almost over by the time you read this, what are you A, most surprised by, B, most excited for, and C, wanted more of? Cheers. So I think in general, I wanted more of a bit of everything, really. I felt, 3 figures that made up the final wave of the year, and the Jedi Spirit set kind of wasn't enough really in terms of like just normal releases, right? They centered it all around the HasLab. This is the big reveal, the big HasLab, and they kind of felt that that was enough. I wanted more stuff revealed, even if it was revealed for 2026. For example, the Black Series got the Stranger. Why not just reveal that you're going to do the Stranger in TVC as well? And that would also help out Last Figure Standing as well, right? Because, you know, you've got a character that might get a lot of votes. Already revealed. We know we're getting him. You know, you can vote for other characters. Let some others rise to the top instead of the same characters every time, you know? Reveal it. Get it out of the way. So what am I most excited for? It's definitely the HasLab Gunship. You know, I definitely want that in my collection. I think it looks brilliant. I think they've done a fantastic job with it. It's just the price that is concerning for a lot of people out there. I feel $399 would have been the sweet spot in my opinion. I think with the HasLab surcharge, if you're not a member of Hasbro Pulse, it's kind of pushing people over the edge. So yeah, but that's the thing that I'm most excited for. And was I surprised by anything? No, I've got to be honest, I wasn't really. Kind of figured that that's what we'll be seeing. GA says, hi BB, question for next week. For the first time I can remember, Hasbro Pulse has cancelled one of my orders, citing no longer available. The order was for the Darth Vader's TIE Advance. Do you know if any other collectors have experienced this, and why might this have happened? Extra question, what's your favourite reveal from SDCC? Cheers, my man. So that is the first time I've heard of that, in terms of like there's no stock and they've cancelled your order. That seems a bit bizarre. Never heard that. Anybody that's watching this, let us know in the comments if you've experienced that. I have had them cancel orders because my payment wasn't correct, even though that they've used that payment type ever since I've had the account and it hasn't expired for some reason recently. You have to sort of re-add it, which is super, super annoying. And in terms of what was my favourite reveal from SDCC, mentioned that just a second ago, has to be the HasLab Gunship. You know, I think it looks really good. Riley Bob says, great time on Whatnot the other night, and also great video. Tim, question for next week. With all that Star Wars is near and dear to all of our childhood hearts, but what aspect of Star Wars is your favourite? Is it the alien creatures, characters and their designs, battle of good versus evil, the vehicles and the ships, the architecture of the galaxy far, far away, the philosophy and stories from a long time ago? Curious on how, in what aspect of Star Wars touches the fandom. As always, keep up the great work and have a great week. Cheers. Thank you, Riley Bob, for the question. I think for me, it's like a combination of all of those things that you've mentioned. I think for me, as a young fan, it just hit the sweet spot, right? You know, Star Wars for me at the age I was, that when I watched it, it was released at the perfect time. And along with the toys that were released at the time, the old Kenner line, it just had that perfect mix. And, you know, I think with the whole nostalgia thing as we've got older, it's a very, very sort of nice time to sort of look back on. And, you know, even watching the films now, I still feel they hold up today. And that is testament, obviously, to George Lucas and the storytelling and the technology that he had at the time. You know, they're just brilliant films, aren't they? They changed cinema. But for me, it's everything that just goes into one. It's just like a melting pot of everything, really. I think it's just the perfect storm. 1976 Zucker says, hi BB, thank you for all your last videos. Great content as always. Question next week. What will happen next year with the release of the new Star Wars movie? In the past, all Star Wars movies except Episode 9 had its own 5POA line. What would Hasbro do with the new movie? Adding it to the TVC and Black Series and release new toys in both lines, which means having less figures for all the other medias. Or on the other side, should Hasbro create a new specific 5POA line for this new movie like they did recently with Episode 7, 8, Rogue One and Solo? This will affect the budget for the 3.75 inch TVC line too, isn't it? OBB, please help us with your unlimited wisdom. Cheers. So first of all, I think this is a different movie to other movies in that we already have quite a lot that's going to be in it. We have countless Mandos, Grogus, all that kind of stuff. We have the main characters. We have pretty much everything. I don't think the looks of them are going to change too much this time. There are obviously going to be things that we want from the film, and of course the Black Series will get more than the Vintage Collection. And then you've got the kiddie line, right? I can't even remember what it's called, but it's the cheaper line. And as far as I'm aware, at Hasbro, that doesn't affect the fan line. So the fan line is your retro, your TVC, and your Black Series. And that sort of budget is on one side, and then you have like the kiddie budget on the other. So perhaps the kiddie line, the sort of, you know, dumbed down figures, might see more from that movie because it will be in the cinemas and things like that, and they'll want to get the kids into the collecting of figures. So maybe that's how they'll go. But honestly, with the Vintage Collection, right now, if you said, what do you want from the Mando and Grogu movie? Obviously, I haven't really seen a proper trailer for it. There might be some new characters that we want, but in general, I think we already have a lot of what's going to be in that movie, which is a good thing. Marco Martinez says, hello Boss Bounty, Marco from the Bronx, USA. Question for next week. What are the chances that we will get Luthen from Andor in TVC and the TIE Avenger? What do you think that a 3-figure pack of Luthen from Season 1, Ferrix, Mon Mothma from Season 2, Senate, Cloves, Speech, and Claire from Season 2? I would take that 3-pack all day long, my friend. I'm not too sure if that's how they will get those figures out, but I would definitely take it if that's what they did. I think Luthen has got a much bigger chance than the TIE Avenger, personally. I think Luthen is the one, right? I think if you look at the 2 seasons, Luthen's the one that we really need in the vintage collection. I know that there's countless others, but if you were to pick one character from Andor Season 1 and 2, for me, it's got to be Luthen first. This is the week way, says, hey BB, great video as always. Really enjoyed the live stream auction on Saturday night. Also, I purchased one of your X-Wing pilots, which arrived today. Cheers, buddy. Question for next week. Do you think Hasbro going out of their way to sculpt a Duros X-Wing pilot suggests that we will be seeing a Duros Cantina Patron, perhaps in a Cantina Patrons 4-pack this year? It would be great to have a few more aliens for the HasLab. Cheers. So yeah, this goes back to that tease at San Diego Comic-Con where they had that table with the 4 shadows of the arms. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those was a Duros, because as you say, they've got the head. And as I mentioned about the Greedo question, I feel some of the characters in that pack might be new, but I feel that they're going to have to use some existing parts. And that doesn't mean re-releasing a figure like Lisub Serlin, for example, from the Legacy Collection. I feel it means, you know, like a Greedo head or a Duros head. Something like that where they can use a bit of the existing tooling to get those Cantina aliens out. Carl Wilson says, hi Tim, great Sunday viewing as always, and well done on your Whatnot auction. Really enjoyed that. Question for next week, or more of a rant really. When I hear of the uncertainty surrounding TVC, it really annoys me seeing retro cards lying around shops that won't sell in a million years. Retro should have been, in my opinion, based around re-releasing the older style Kenner card backs and for new collectors. This should not have included new media like The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, etc. What a waste of money, and I think very detrimental to the TVC line. The vintage collection figures are unbelievable, and as you suggested with the HasLab Rebels figures and others on the way. As a former Black Series collector, through your channel and others, I made the move to TVC. I'm glad I did, and with successful HasLab releases and a really good few small vehicles and creatures, I really hope the line continues and Hasbro see what a strong line this is and cuts out all of the new retro nonsense. Let's hope with the new Mandalorian and Grogu movie, TVC gets a boost and Disney can keep bringing top Star Wars shows coming. I would love a reboot of Rebels, either animated or live action. What are your thoughts? So in terms of the retro collection, yes, absolutely. They completely lost their way with that. And in fact, let's be honest about it, they got greedy. Hasbro got greedy with the retro collection. They saw how well the first run of those A New Hope figures went, and they should have just capitalized on that. They should have gone through the 96. They should have done them all. They should have done all of the characters that we never got before, like Han Solo in Stormtrooper outfit, Rebel Fleet Trooper. That is what they should do. But no, what did they do? They upped the price and they started making retro figures of TV series like The Acolyte, which is just completely bonkers for me. It nearly killed the retro line. In fact, it really did kill the retro line. As you mentioned, they are in all of these stores for like £3. You can still get all of the Obi-Wans, for example, in the Entertainer for like £3. They can't get rid of them. They can't give them away. So what did they do? They've reset and they've given us that one box set for this year of the figures that we really wanted from the retro collection. So at least they've course corrected, understood their mistake, and I think from now on you will not see any of that new stuff in the retro collection. It'll be just like that box set, but maybe the regularity of how often those are released will be not as much as they did with the previous retro figures. But yeah, I agree with your rant, buddy. I totally agree with what you're saying. Ponder Poodoo says, hi BB, you asked for it, so I'm placing it again. I see a brighter future for the TVC community, a future of joy, peace and harmony, a future where OGs like me would get the deep cut characters they need to complete their dioramas, already well filled after decades of acquisitions. Ali El-Shush, Fosek, Shasha Teal, just saying, last figure standing lists. A future where younger generations would see their favourite shows and movies interpreted in the legendary scale, opening the door to want more right after. This future is easy to imagine. only requires to finish the original trilogy mains. Who's missing now except C-3PO, and regularly deliver original 96 now that the deluxe card issue is solved? What would prevent it? Question for next week. Am I a simpleton to believe that this future is within reach? Don't spare me, I can handle it. Thanks for all you're doing for the community. Part of the fun comes from you. Thank you, buddy. That is nice for you to say. Now, when it comes to Hasbro, unfortunately, they can't give everybody everything that those people want. It's just impossible for them to do. There's just too much stuff. We've got the original trilogy, prequel trilogy, sequel trilogy. You've got video games. You've got animation, Clone Wars, Andor, Solo. There's just so much stuff for them to do. They can't make everybody happy. It's impossible. But as we've seen this year, there has been a focus with the Return to Tatooine. Next year, they're doing a focus with the Battle of Geonosis. Let's hope that the Battle of Geonosis delivers what people want, you know, in terms of like prequel fans. Let's hope it delivers what they want, and let's hope that they eat it up. Now, for me, I like the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. I, like both of them. So whatever they release, hopefully will make me happy as well. I listed some of the things that I feel that I would like from the Battle of Geonosis at the beginning of this video. So let's hope they deliver on some of those, and let's hope that they make some new stuff as well. But of course, they can't just focus on the Battle of Geonosis throughout that year. They will alienate a lot of people, so they have to sprinkle in some other stuff as well. So for me personally, I'm hoping for stuff from Andor, from Rogue One, filling out some of those crews that we need. Bad Batch, we need more from the Bad Batch. But yes, let's, as you said, hope for a harmonious community, and going forward, everybody gets a piece of what they want. That would be the sweet thing, wouldn't it? But, let's see what Hasbro do in the next 12 months. All right then, guys, that's it for this week's episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for asking the questions. Please leave your questions for next week's episode in the comment section below. And don't forget my live stream auction on Whatnot this Thursday, 8 PM British summertime, where the buyer's giveaway will be this awesome TVC 1.0 Zam Wessel figure from Attack of the Clones. Links are in the description below. If you haven't signed up for Whatnot yet, you'll be given a credit to spend on the platform. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members for the extra support. It is truly appreciated. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we shall see you on the next one.